Stop calling. I don't care if you die. Those words still echo in my ears as I stand on the cold porch, the door slamming shut behind me. The night air sits heavy against my skin, quiet except for the distant hum of traffic. I hold the empty medicine bottle loosely at my side, the plastic tapping against my fingers with every shaky breath I take. I don't shout back. I don't defend myself. I don't even turn around. I just stand there, letting the silence swallow the chaos behind the door. Years of effort, patience, and sacrifices, all of it dismissed in a single moment of anger. The porch light flickers above me, casting a faint glow over the cracked concrete step where I steady myself. I walk slowly down the driveway, each step deliberate, my knees stiff from the cold and the weight of what just happened. My son's voice still rings sharp in my memory, filled with frustration he doesn't even understand, frustration he never bothered to question. I don't blame him for feeling overwhelmed. Life is heavy on all of us, but the cruelty of those words, the finality of them, grips somewhere deep inside me. I pull my coat tighter, listening to the soft scrape of gravel beneath my shoes. The neighborhood is quiet, windows dark, houses still. It feels like the world has turned its back on me, but I don't let that thought linger. Instead, I reach into my pocket and pull out my phone. My hands tremble slightly, whether from age, cold, or heartbreak, I'm not entirely sure. I scroll to a single saved number and press call. No hesitation. No second thoughts. Just a firm, steady push of my thumb. When the line picks up, I speak softly, my voice calm, deliberate, controlled. It's not a call made out of revenge or hatred. No, it's a call made out of necessity, something important, something he never cared enough to ask about. I explain everything in a quiet tone, listening as the person on the other end responds with gentle seriousness. When I hang up, the night feels lighter, as if the air itself has shifted. I walk slowly toward the small rental apartment I've been keeping for emergencies, a secret my son never cared enough to discover. The building is dim, old, silent at this hour. The elevator hums as I ascend to the second floor. My footsteps echo down the narrow hallway as I unlock the door. Inside, everything is simple but warm. I turn on a lamp, its yellow glow pooling softly across the small living room. I sit at the table, placing the empty medicine bottle in front of me. The label stares back. A reminder of something real, something serious. Something ignored. My fingers trace the ridges of the bottle cap as I think about my son. About the way he didn't even pause to ask why the bottle was empty. Why I called him, why I sounded out of breath. He didn't look at my face, didn't notice the strain in my voice, didn't ask what was wrong. He just exploded, reacting to an inconvenience he didn't want to acknowledge. I inhale deeply and exhale slowly, grounding myself in the quiet of this small apartment. The lamp buzzes softly. The walls seem to hold their breath. As the hours slip by, I sit there in the calm, waiting for morning to come. The thin curtains sway gently as the heater kicks on, sending a warm draft through the room. My mind drifts between memory and hope, between disappointment and patience. I've never asked my son for much, just a moment of attention, a fraction of understanding, a simple willingness to listen. But last night proved how far from that he has drifted. Still, anger is not what fills me. Instead, it's a steady, quiet resolve. When dawn finally breaks, faint light spills into the apartment. Birds begin to stir outside the window, their soft chirping breaking the long silence. I stand and stretch my stiff back, listening to the gentle click of the heater shutting off. My phone rests on the table, screen blank. The call I made last night is already setting things into motion quietly, professionally, inevitably. Not as punishment, but as truth. A truth he never cared to hear from me. By the time the sun rises fully, casting warm orange streaks across the walls, I know he will be awake. I know he will see the missed call from the number he doesn't recognize. I know he will hear the voicemail the doctor left for him, the one explaining everything he refused to listen to last night. The one that will force him to face more than just an empty medicine bottle. And I know, deep down, that this morning will change something in him. Maybe for the first time in a long time, he will finally understand what my silence was trying to tell him, and that understanding is only just beginning. Morning light creeps slowly through the blinds, pale and hesitant, as if the world itself is holding its breath. I sit at the small kitchen table in my quiet apartment, the empty medicine bottle still in front of me, faintly catching the early sunlight. My mind is calm, steady, though every fiber of me remembers the anger from last night, his shouting, his cruelty, his refusal to pause for even a moment of understanding. I sip my tea slowly, savoring the warmth, and wait. The call I made last night has already set things in motion. I don't need to do anything else. The truth has a way of arriving quietly, but with a force no shouting can resist. I imagine him waking up, groggy, irritated, not expecting anything out of the ordinary, not prepared to face the consequences of his recklessness. The same arrogance that allowed him to kick me out and shout at me without concern will collide with reality today. His phone buzzes on the nightstand, an unfamiliar number, a voicemail he will not ignore. It's calm, measured, professional, but it carries the weight of a truth he refused to hear last night. I can almost see his face as the words register, his eyes widening, pulse racing, voice faltering as the doctor's recording begins to explain what he should have known hours before. What he ignored entirely. The state of my health, the emptiness of my medicine bottle, the urgency of care he dismissed. I sit back in the chair, feeling the smooth wood beneath my fingers, letting the quiet hum of the heater fill the room. I think about how many times he assumed I was exaggerating, pretending, or just being difficult. He never considered the weight I carry for him, the foresight, the constant vigilance, the patient attention to details he never noticed. Last night's fury will soon collide with that reality. He has no idea how thoroughly the consequences of his anger are about to unfold. Hours pass slowly. I walk to the window and watch the sun inch higher, casting warm light over the city streets. Children laugh in the distance, cars hum past, and the quiet world outside seems indifferent to his outburst. Yet, inside his own home, the storm I set in motion will arrive like lightning, sudden and undeniable. He will hear the doctor's recording, and for the first time, he will understand what he refused to see, that my health is not trivial, that my needs are real, and that his cruelty has consequences that cannot be brushed aside. I imagine him listening now, though he hasn't yet picked up the phone. His hands shake, his jaw tightens, his pride faltering. The voice of the doctor, calm, professional, and precise, fills the space where my warnings and pleas once went unheard. Every detail I carefully left for him to discover, every ounce of patience I poured into our relationship, crystallizes in those recorded words. He cannot interrupt, cannot argue, cannot escape the truth. The recording reveals the danger of ignoring someone who has carried the burden quietly, invisibly for so long. I return to the table and trace the ridges of the empty medicine bottle. It seems smaller now, fragile, yet heavy with meaning. It is not the bottle that carries weight, but the neglect it represents. He will hear it, and he will know what he almost destroyed. My silence, my restraint, my decision not to confront him in anger, all of it has prepared the stage for this moment. When he finally listens, his understanding will be raw, immediate, and inescapable. Time passes in measured breaths. I lean back, feeling the chair steady beneath me, and I realize that the lesson is already happening. The storm has shifted from shouting and kicking to quiet comprehension, from denial to undeniable truth. He will face it alone, without my interference, without the chaos of confrontation. And in that space, he will finally see what he has ignored, what he has taken for granted, and what it truly means to care for someone who has never stopped caring for him. By late morning, I imagine him in his bedroom, phone pressed to his ear, listening as the doctor carefully explains everything. His voice shakes, panic rising, disbelief and fear mingling with the first hints of regret. I do not need to watch him. I know the weight of that recording, the impact of the words I could not deliver myself. For the first time, he is forced to confront the consequences of his anger, the fragility of life, and the quiet endurance of those who love him unconditionally. And I sit, 70 years old, white-skinned, clean-shaved, calm, patient, watching the city hum below my window. I feel the quiet satisfaction of inevitability. He will not forget this lesson, and neither will I. Some truths cannot be shouted into existence. They must arrive quietly, professionally, irrevocably, until the person finally listens. Today, he will. By mid-morning, the storm that began the night before has shifted entirely into a quiet, relentless force. I imagine my son now, phone pressed to his ear, trembling as the doctor's voice fills the room. The calm, professional tone leaves no room for denial. He listens, disbelief etched into every line of his face. His hand shakes over the bedside table, eyes wide, jaw tight, pulse racing. Every word of that recording lands with precision, revealing what he ignored last night, the state of my health, the empty medicine bottle, the urgency he refused to acknowledge. The arrogance and fury he displayed yesterday are replaced by raw panic. I sit quietly in my apartment. 70 years old, white-skinned, clean-shaved, hair neat. Letting the process unfold exactly as it should. My fingers trace the edge of the kitchen table. Empty medicine bottle beside me. Silent witness to the events. I don't need to intervene. My silence has already set the stage for him to face the consequences of his own actions. He cannot argue with the recorded truth. He cannot deny what he ignored. Every neglected warning, every dismissed concern, every moment he refused to listen now bears weight in his chest. I can picture him pacing the room. Phone clutched tightly, eyes darting from wall to wall. Struggling to comprehend. Panic rises like a tidal wave, swallowing reason. He realizes that his anger, his shoving, his cruelty toward me was not just thoughtless, it was dangerous. That empty medicine bottle, that dismissive shout, that night of fury, it all led here. A confrontation with reality he cannot escape. His chest tightens, breath comes in shallow gasps, and he drops to the floor, head in his hands. Every detail I left for him to discover now hits with precision. The recording tells him everything he refused to notice. Missed doses, the fragility of health, the responsibility he ignored. He cannot walk away. He cannot block the call or hang up without hearing every word. And as he listens, comprehension begins to break through panic. He begins to understand, for the first time, the weight of my patience, foresight, and quiet endurance. He begins to realize the consequences of anger, untempered by care. Hours feel compressed. I imagine him pacing, sitting, falling to the floor, rising again. Tears streak his pale face. He mutters apologies into the phone, not fully understanding if they are to me or to himself. The voice on the recording remains calm, firm, unwavering, revealing what he could not grasp in his fury. Each phrase lands like a hammer, breaking through pride, arrogance, and ignorance. The lesson is brutal, but necessary. He will never hear those words without understanding the cost of his neglect. I lean back in my chair, letting the quiet hum of the city fill the room. The sun streams through the window, warm and forgiving, highlighting floating dust particles, illuminating the calm after chaos. I know he is exhausted, emotionally and physically. His panic has reached its peak, and comprehension is beginning to settle in. He is finally seeing what he refused to see last night, the fragility of health, the danger of neglect, and the endurance of someone who never stopped caring. Finally, I picture him sitting on the edge of the bed, phone resting in his lap, hands trembling. tears falling, chest heaving. He looks around the room, noticing for the first time the small details he has ignored all his life. The careful organization, the quiet preparations, the invisible work that sustained him. Pride is gone. Fear, regret, and understanding take its place. He finally realizes that my silence was never indifference. It was patience, strategy, and love. By late afternoon, the intensity has faded, leaving him exhausted but changed. He finally exhales, voice soft and broken, whispering words he never thought he would. I didn't realize. I'm sorry. I never saw. I didn't know. The weight of the lesson presses down, undeniable and permanent. He has seen, for the first time, the full extent of what he ignored, the fragility of life, and the quiet endurance of those who care. I sit quietly, 70 years old, white-skinned, clean-shaved, hair neat, watching the transformation unfold from a distance, knowing that some lessons cannot be rushed. They must be experienced fully, painfully, and irrevocably. Today, he has faced reality. Today, he has confronted truth. And tomorrow, he will carry it with him. The storm has passed, but the imprint of understanding, respect, and humility will remain forever. The room is quiet now. My son sits on the edge of his bed, phone still in hand, chest heaving, eyes wide, face pale and streaked with tears. The panic has subsided, replaced by a heavy, trembling comprehension. He finally understands the magnitude of what he ignored, the consequences of his anger, and the fragility of the life he assumed would always be sustained without thought. I step into the room calmly, 70 years old, white-skinned, clean-shaved, hair neat, presence steady and unthreatening. I sit beside him, letting silence carry the weight of the lesson he has just learned. He doesn't speak immediately. His hands shake, holding the empty medicine bottle I carried last night, a tangible reminder of his negligence. I didn't realize I was wrong, he finally whispers, voice cracked, hesitant, filled with remorse. I place a steady hand on his shoulder, letting him feel the calm steadiness he refused to recognize in me before. No scolding, no lectures, only presence. The truth, delivered professionally and quietly through the doctor's recording, has spoken louder than any argument could. Sunlight pours into the room, warm and golden, illuminating the small particles of dust suspended in the air, catching the remnants of last night's storm. My son's shoulders slump as understanding finally takes root. He looks at the envelopes I left on the counter, records of every precaution, every careful action I took to protect him, and sees them for the first time not as trivialities, but as proof of enduring care. The anger, the shouting, the cruelty, the words he thought he could throw at me without consequence, all of it has dissolved into comprehension and reflection. Minutes pass, heavy with the weight of realization. He leans slightly toward me, as if seeking both comfort and guidance, eyes filled with awe and quiet shame. I never knew. I never saw. I'm sorry, he whispers again, repeating words he has said countless times in anger, but this time with sincerity, understanding, and reflection. I nod slowly, allowing the silence to settle around us. Some lessons cannot be hurried. They must arrive fully, painfully, and irrevocably. Today, he has learned one of the most important, that care, patience, and foresight often go unseen. But their consequences cannot be ignored. He finally sets the phone down and looks at me directly, eyes still glistening. I understand now everything. You did all this for me. The words hang in the air, soft but permanent. I place my hand over his in quiet affirmation. He leans back, exhausted, humbled, and transformed by the weight of the truth he refused to hear until now. The storm of panic has passed, replaced by reflection, respect, and newfound humility. The envelopes remain on the counter. The empty medicine bottle at his side, a reminder, not of failure, but of lessons learned. I rise slowly, letting him adjust to the calm, feeling the warmth of sunlight across the room. Dust floats lazily in the rays, highlighting the stillness that contrasts with the storm of moments ago. My son's transformation is subtle yet profound, pride softened, arrogance replaced with humility, ignorance replaced with awareness. And I, 70 years old, white-skinned, clean-shaved, hair neat, calm, steady, watch with quiet satisfaction. Not from triumph or revenge, but from knowing that truth, patience, and quiet endurance have taught a lesson that will never be forgotten. Sometimes the most important words are not shouted, they are revealed through reality, through consequence, and through the unyielding persistence of care. Today he has finally seen. Today he has finally understood. And that, I know, will stay with him forever.